What up, Toji here. I finally hit level 60 in Wuthering Waves. I'm now prepping for Shorekeeper. I was previously prepping for her even before I hit level 60, so let me make that well aware right from the get-go. But I wanted this to be a video that is helpful for all of you that are looking to roll for Shorekeeper and wondering how you should build a character. There is a few routes you can go and a few more depending on how much you want to invest into this character. But let's just hop right into it. We'll go over the materials, we'll go over all of the echoes, and we'll go over the teammates she'll be nice with. Spoiler alert, she is Verena, essentially. So any team you use Verena in is the same team you use Shorekeeper in, so she's extremely flexible. Alright, Shorekeeper is a healer, a damage mitigation character, a character that gives buffs as well, much like Verena. We'll discuss all of that in just a minute. But these are the materials you do need for Shorekeeper. So you can see right here, I have a ton of HF Howler cores. I've been farming in this game for a very long time. So since I have an abundance of these from just farming echoes in the overworld, I don't need to farm any more of these because I already have enough, well over the amount I'm going to need for both her skill tree and her ascension. You can farm these out from the Frost boss in the overworld, the Lamnian Myriad, I believe that's how you pronounce the name. And you do get these from the boss dropping. Depending on the level you are, the amount you get is different. So since I just hit level 60, I will be getting more of these drops after killing that mob. The Lampy Lumen Myriad. Okay, I said the name wrong, I guess, for the beginning half. Then you detect it here, and then this is the boss right here. To get to this boss, for some of you that are maybe joining the game at the time of Shorekeeper arriving, which I assume is a fair amount of people. Okay, I TP'd right into the boss zone. Just TP right here. It's going to leave you outside of, I still get the TPs mixed up time to time. It's going to leave you outside the zone, but you do want to get to the zone here first. You can unlock either or TP, really doesn't matter. Unlocking this TP, though, is a quicker spot. You unlock this TP, and then you want to go all the way down to the bottom of this pit, like to the very bottom. The easiest way of getting to the bottom is just going around in a circle until you find the entrance, but since you're going there, it'll be on the left side. On that TP right that we just TP'd from, you go down here, and then you'll be in the spot, and then there's a giant pit. You go down, and then once you go down here, you turn around, and then there is a even longer abyss, and then you go through here, and it's going to lead you to the TP spot I TP'd to in the beginning that I got the location mixed up for, and this is where you'll be fighting the boss. I honestly think this is one of the coolest boss locations in the game. It feels very Abyss and Pokemon-like. It really feels like you found a legendary Pokemon. So I really do enjoy that aspect about Wuthering Waves sometimes. I am excited to see how this new location is going to be for the exploration for Black Shores. I am really looking forward to that. If you are SOL 3 phase, less than 7, right? You're 6 and below, you're going to need up to 18 of those boss mats. And if you are level 7, you're going to need 30 in total of those boss mats. But for those of you that are veterans, you probably already knew that. Alright, I'm re-recording a huge chunk of this video because I sound very hideous when I was listening to my recorded audio when I was editing the video. Now let's talk about the echoes I am planning to use and the echoes you can use for your build for Shorekeeper. There's a few ways you can build a character. One of those ways is going to be as a sub DPS supportive. The other way is as a straight up supportive character, which is going to be the way most people build her. And then the last way is going to be as a main DPS, which is the way I'm planning on building her because I plan to go S6. You can try to do this pre-S6, but it isn't going to feel as good as S6 unless you go extremely heavy into her echoes. Now, the way you build Shorekeeper is the same way you build Verena. You want variation. The reason why you want variation is because it gives you a ton of energy regen and it gives you concerted energy gain after using the resonance skill. Remember, the resonance skill is instant cast like the resonance skill for Verena. So that means you'll get the concerted energy easily and you'll be able to do your basic attacks to get more concerted energy. And you'll be able to get off the field as quickly as possible, which is very important for a character that buffs the team and also wants to allow the team to maximize those buffs, everything being provided to the team, the healing as well, right? If you don't, it is a damage loss the longer the character is on the field. Now, considering this is a gacha weapon, right, a gacha 4-star, you are going to have to rely on the RNG of the gacha system to get this weapon. But if you do have 2 copies of this already, it's in your best interest to save 1 copy for Shorekeeper if you plan to throw for the character and have one copy for Verena, because you do just get enough consistent energy gain from just using the skill once on R1. The extra consistent energy you do get from afterwards refining the weapon is valuable, but R1 is extremely good. It's all you need, really. And then the energy regen is very important because Shorekeeper, or her ultimate rather, scales off of the energy regen versus Verena. Energy regen is nice, but it doesn't make or break the character, if that makes sense. And I'll explain that right now. So, Shorekeeper has this mechanic on her ultimate that gives a buff to the team. I mean, I can't really say the buff out loud because obviously it's leaked and subject to change, but she gives buffs based on her energy regen. So the amount of energy regen you need to have on the character as of right now at the time of recording is 250% to maximize the buffs you do give to the team on the ultimate usage, right? Now, there is a few ways to getting that 250 energy regen for the character. One of those ways is getting the energy regen from your echoes, right? So you can get, most likely, on average, from 45 to 50% energy regen on your echo substats, right? Now that is in counting that 9 to 10% is what you would try to strive for on the echoes. You can get that on the energy main one as well, right? Energy regen. And the energy regen is going to be on top of the 45 to 50% you do get. So if you have the energy main, you're going to get, let's just say 30%, right? Because the extra 2% doesn't really matter that much. So let's say you get 30% here, and then you have 50% from your echoes. So you have 80% energy regen right there. Variation does give you up to 51% energy regen. So let's say 50% there. So you have 80% energy regen here. You have 50% energy regen from the weapon choice. You have 130% energy regen right there. Shorekeeper does have this forte that gives her energy regen from just using her ultimate. So that means you, and being present in the team as well. So that means you have 240% energy regen on the character is going to appear in her forte. That means you only need 10% energy regen. So the easiest way of getting that last 10% energy regen is it, and this is only if you choose to change her build completely, is if you were to run the Moonlit Cloud set, which does give energy regen for the wearer, and it does give you a nice damage buff going towards your next DPS. But I don't assume most people are going to go for this, because what you end up doing is if you choose to use her in a team where you have more than one damage dealer. So for instance, the recent example of this is being the Jinsei and the Zheje team, or even the Yinlin and Zhang Liao team, which for everyone has Zhang Liao, right? And even if you're not using Yinlin, I assume a lot of you are going to roll for the character, right? Because she makes Zhang Liao a complete character. So you want a set that is going to buff both characters, because both of them are dealing damage in the team. So you're giving attack percent to the whole team versus giving just attack percent to the next character you swap into. So while the 10% here is very valuable, because you do give a nice extra bit of buffs, you maximize buffs she can give with the 250% energy regen. She really needs maximum. Well, Rejuvenating Glow gives you healing to the whole team. All you would need to do at this point is just make up for the energy regen and echoes, right? You can get up to, I believe it's 12% energy regen for your echo substats, which is a little hard to obtain if you are trying to min-max her. But it's definitely doable, and you can have 250%. But again, 240% isn't going to make or break the performance, because you are still giving close to max of buffs you can give from her ultimate, right? Now, where that would actually work out being extremely valuable is in teams where you want to use just one damage dealer. So if you're someone who plays solo runs with characters, right? Maybe you are someone who uses Encore, for instance, right? And you use this character by herself. Well, having Shorekeeper in the same team on Rejuvenating Glow is going to give the max amount of damage to one character. You're giving 22% instead of giving 15%, right? And that 22% does last for 15 seconds, but that's all you need for your main damage dealer, because after those 15 seconds, even sometimes less than that, you're going to swap back to Shorekeeper to refresh those buffs you are giving back to your damage dealer. And you are getting at 250%, so you're giving a little bit more buffs to your on-field damage dealer. So that's why it's very valuable to have Moonlit Clouds on Shorekeeper if you plan to use her alongside one single damage dealer, right? Again, it depends on the type of player you are. So I would say it is for those of you that are hardcore. Now that's just for the pure supportive route. So let's say you want to build her as a supportive damage dealing hybrid character, right? which is a little more onto the investment route, not in terms of weapon, because variation is the weapon you should only be using the character. I would even suggest going for her signature weapon, because compared to variation, it doesn't give that much more value. Variation is extremely strong for a 4-star weapon. Again, like the best 4-star weapon in the game, basically. Well, Shorekeeper, you can use her on the Rejuvenating Glow, but you can also give her some stats going towards crit. So some of these echoes I have crit, which was not intentional. But let's say I wanted to use Shorekeeper on a crit-based build, hybrid build, right? With the 240, 250% energy regen to maximize the buffs to the team. Energy regen main, right? Crit stats, HP, energy regen for the sub. That's all you need. Same here. HP main, crit damage, energy regen. Resonance skill will be nice because it gives her more damage, but it's not necessary. And then you have the HP main for your 2 echoes here, because these are echoes that this character scales based off of, the cost 1 echoes, right? HP. Here you can have spectral damage, or you can have, again, energy regen if you choose. And this is only why you would go energy regen, is if you choose to not go for energy regen and substats. You want to just farm as for little as possible for the character. You would just go for main stats, then you would go energy regen, and then you go HP, and then you would go healing bonus, right? And that's if you want to not spend any more than a day worth of farming on the character. But for sub DPS, you can go spectral damage, you can go HP %, right? Spectral damage does give her more damage, but HP does give her more healing and then a little bit more damage, right? Because she scales based off of HP for both her healing and her damage as well, right? Her butterflies that she does shoot at the enemy. But since you only need HP and energy regen on the character, right, those 2 stats, getting crit and crit damage isn't going to be something that's impossible, because she's a character that doesn't need as many stats as other characters. Like, for instance, Jinsei needs, resonance skill damage. She needs crit rate, crit damage, attack %. Well, Shorekeeper is giving attack % to characters like this, while also being character scales off of HP. She's not like Verena, where Verena needs HP and attack. Verena scales off of attack for her healing. And HP is there so that the character doesn't get one-tapped when she's on field if you forget to dodge something. Shorekeeper scales primarily off of HP. So she's going to be very nice on field because she's going to have a ton of HP, allowing you to survive longer, right? And not have to worry about sweating your balls off to, play the character like Verena does essentially sometimes. That's very nice. And of course, Bellborn does help with damage mitigation too. So she's going to feel especially tanky on field. Now, if you're like me and you choose the role for the character S6, then I was just going for the spectral set, because her intro skill is going to allow her to deal more damage for spectral, right? Because that's the requirement for the spectral set. And overall, you are going to increase the damage of her butterflies, which will fare out to do a ton of damage if you have a lot of HP on the character, right? And again, S6 does give you a ton of extra buffs. It did just recently get buffed, so it is more valuable for players that choose to heavily invested to her. And I choose to go for that instead of trying to go for a weapon. Even though her weapon is good, variation is still extremely good. I don't have more than one variation, so I probably need to change that very soon, or else I'm going to have to go for her weapon. Now, as for the echoes and the mains and substats, I choose to go for 3 cost spectral damage bonus, right? HP, energy regen. The energy regen I'm going to have on the character is 200%. I am missing out on some buffs, but do keep in mind that I'm a player that min-maxes echoes. So for me, losing out on some of the buffs she does give from her ultimate to the team isn't going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Because when you take a look at some of my DPS characters, like for instance my Cheng Li, look at her build. She already has a ton of crit rate and crit damage. It can be higher still, but if she's giving like, let's say, throwing out a random number here, let's say she gives like 20% crit damage to Cheng Li, right? Or let's say she gives like 10%. That's better than giving 12%, 13, 14, right? It's not going to matter that much to me because I already have a high number anyways. Jinsei too, right? I already have a consistent number. Her echo is missing because I have it on Shorekeeper right now, Shorekeeper's build. I have to replace her echo soon because I'm using that one on Shorekeeper. But yeah, my DPSs already have really good stats, so it doesn't matter to me that much. But for those of you, again, it'll matter a lot more depending on how new you are to the game and how less of a min-max or how casual are you, right? Will matter how much more the buffs she does give to your team because of that. Because I don't really care about maximizing the buffs she's giving to the team, I have her with 2 spectral damage, crit damage, HP, energy regen, right? It's going to maximize her damage, still give buffs to the team, Also allows her to get her ultimate still reliably during rotations and all that jazz. And then I would prefer to have resonance skill damage because that is what her damaging ability skill based off of resonance skill. Crit rate main because the character doesn't have any way of getting crit rate in her kit. So she's going to want crit rate if you choose to go down a crit based build. But for those of you that are choosing to use her as a supportive character, a healer, you would definitely just want to use her as you would use your Verena, Bellborn, Rejuvenated Glow set. If you choose to use her alongside one damage dealer, right, like you're a Donji main for instance, then you would have her on Moonlit Clouds, which does maximize the buffs you are giving to one teammate, and then you get that extra bit of energy regen from the first half of the passive, right, which is very nice to maximize her buffs if you want to just invest into one character. Now, as for teams, she's pretty much going to be the character that you would use in the same teams you use Verena in, because she's essentially Verena, right? I've said this many, many times already. So if I wanted to use Shorekeeper in a team like this, it really would depend on the damage dealer, because some damage dealers have a rough time dodging attacks, and that's where a character like Shorekeeper comes into play, because Shorekeeper helps with that. Again, Jinsei is a character you really want to attack for as long as you can, because she has that time window with her resonance skill where you want to get it out as quickly as possible so that you can start stacking towards the next one, right? It's very important. She's one of the few characters where you want to constantly attack as long as you can without having to worry about being hit by the enemy, just so you can get going towards her next Forte circuit, right? Because she is a one-hit character versus other characters like Gion that has multi-hits. So a character like Shorekeeper wouldn't matter too much for Gion, whereas Verena has value in both teams, but Shorekeeper has the slight edge because she has a stagger resistance, which is very nice for characters like Jinsei. But again, it depends on a damage dealer. In a team like this, I would say it doesn't really matter, Shorekeeper or Verena. Both characters are pretty good. A team like this, I would say Shorekeeper has a slight edge. Chingli is one of those characters also where using her attacks can be kind of long, especially against some bosses. You're constantly refreshing your basic attack animations. It does get pretty annoying. So Shorekeeper, allowing you to mitigate that, would be very nice. So I would say Shorekeeper has the edge in a team like this. And again, it just depends on a damage dealer. Now, we're getting to the point where mono teams matter a lot more in Wuthering Waves. You probably have started to see this recently, right? With Zhengli, Yao, and Yinlin being a very top, probably the top tier team right now in Wuthering Waves, just because of how strong it is to have Verena. Well, yes, Verena in the team, but have Yinlin giving those resonance liberation buffs and also giving the electro damage buffs to Zhengli to maximize his resonance liberation damage, because his whole kit scales off resonance liberation damage. God, that they could not have made that so freaking hard to say. I'm just gonna say ultimate from now on, but resonance liberation sounds cool. It's just hard for me to pronounce all the freaking time. You maximize the buffs that Yinlin is giving to him, and he deals a ton of damage in the form of a nuke, so it's very valuable. And again, that is a mono team essentially. But in the future, apparently we are getting a glacial damage dealer, which is nice because I don't want to use Ling Yang. So that means Baizhi is going to have value. And the reason why this is important is because you will now have 3 teams, right? Free to play will now have 3 teams where you can have a healer in all 3 of those teams. Now, at a certain point in the end game, the bosses do pretty much one-shot you, especially depending on their level. So it doesn't matter too much. But being able to use a character like Baizhi that does help you with buffs. Remember, she gives attack buff, damage buff, right? She gives attack in her kit, but she gives damage buff in that passive. She also gives further damage bonus to glacial element characters with the Uniphonia being picked up, which is very, very nice. So that means for the future glacial damage dealer, she'll have even more value. So then you'll have 3 teams, essentially, where you'll have all these different characters you can use with a designated defensive character or offensive buffing character, because that's what it seems like the defensive characters are right now in Wuthering Waves. And they'll essentially create these mono teams. We don't really have one for the Electro team right now, but we will have one definitely in the future. And that character will most likely replace Verena if they are a defensive option on top of that. But that's the video here. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of this. That is essentially how I would build the Shorekeeper character in various different ways. Same way as you build Verena, but if you want to build her as a sub DPS damage dealing character, then you can do so as well. Just take into consideration it's going to take more investment, and that investment you do throw into her damage dealing route, you can't just throw into another character that is an actual designated damage dealer like Jinsei, for instance, that will have more value with min-maxing versus min-maxing a Shorekeeper. All right, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.